What's up, everybody? Tennessee is legit. Arkansas wins a conference game. Mizzou, they keep playing with fire. And, oh, man, things are bad at Auburn and Oklahoma. We'll talk about it all. We'll get you our winners and losers of SEC Week 4.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. On today's show, we'll run through our winners and losers of SEC Week 4. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's dive into it as we do our winners of the weekend. And we got to start with the Tennessee Volunteers. Man, oh man, were they impressive. And how about that Volunteer defense? A massively impressive road win for the Vols, beating Oklahoma Saturday night 25-15 in a game that honestly wasn't even that close. At Vol defense, 3 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss. Jermod McCoy had an interception. Oklahoma did manage to score 2 touchdowns late in the game, but didn't really matter. Oklahoma's offense kept in check much of the night, had under 100 yards total in the contest until midway through the final quarter. And Tennessee now has 4 dominating wins on the season, with each of them coming by double digits. In fact, they had a stretch of 18 straight quarters where the Vol defense had not allowed a touchdown. That defensive line truly elite. And even if they lose their 2 toughest remaining games of the season, Georgia and Bama, they would be 10-2 and still make the playoff. But that game was extra special, as we know, for Josh Heupel, who was a Heisman runner-up while playing quarterback at Oklahoma back in 2000, led the Sooners to a national championship. He also served as an assistant under Bob Stoops from 2006 to 2014. And to make things even more special, after the game in the locker room, Nico Iamaleava presented him with the game ball. And in his post-game speech to the players, Heupel got emotional talking about his return to Norman. He said, it wasn't about him, but he appreciated the guys playing extra hard for him. Kirk Herbstreit even said after the game, some good things are brewing in Knoxville. Cool to see Coach getting vulnerable with his guys. Very special. Tennessee offense wasn't superb, but they didn't have to be. They did what they needed to do in a tough, hostile road environment. Nico threw for a long touchdown to Dante Thornton. Brew McCoy made some nice catches. Dylan Sampson rushed for 92 yards and a touchdown. But it is the defense that made this Tennessee Volunteers team very special this past weekend. Cole Kublik even pointed out Tennessee has not trailed in a football game this year. Next up, the Vols get a bye week before they head to Arkansas, a game that might just be a little tougher the way the Hogs have been playing. Arkansas will get their annual game against Texas A&M before they host Tennessee, so we'll see what shape they are in. Another winner of the weekend, how about Arkansas quarterback Taylen Green, pulling out a nice 24-14 road win over Auburn. Green kind of had a mixed performance, but he threw for 151 yards with a touchdown, 2 bad interceptions, but it was his rushing that really kept the chains moving against Auburn's defense. He finished with 18 carries for 80 yards, including a long of 22. Jaquindon Jackson did his thing, 75 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And Taylen Green did get hurt at one point. Came out for a series. Malachi Singleton had to come in and relieve him, but Green did return to the game. And a really nice job by Bobby Petrino, trusting in Green's legs to keep drives alive. The Hogs were 9 of 19 on third downs, 2 of 4 on fourth downs. Green converted a 3rd and 19 with a scramble. He threw a 58-yard touchdown pass to Satania. And Petrino's offense, it's among the nation's leaders in third down conversion rate so far. So they are doing very well. Defensively, a hat tip to Arkansas DB TJ Metcalf, who had 2 interceptions and a touchdown-saving forced fumble. And a shout-out to Sam Pittman, who went 1-7 in SEC games last year. He now starts 1-0 this season. No rest for the Hogs, though. They will get their annual game against number 24 Texas A&M next, and then it is number 5 Tennessee. Then after a bye week, it's number 14 LSU. A&M, of course, is a neutral field. The other 2 are at home, so maybe that'll help. But That is a brutal stretch coming up for Arkansas. Another winner of the weekend who impressed. How about Jackson Dart and Trey Harris? Ole Miss rolled over Georgia State 52-13. Ole Miss currently has a 198-point differential this season in points, which is the best in SEC history for that time span, according to Cole Kublik. The Rebels are also the first team in SEC history with 600 yards in 4 straight games. And like we said, 220 points are the most in school history for the first 4 games of a season. Jackson Dart finished today 22 of 31, passing 382 yards. Ole Miss built up a 24-7 halftime lead. Never were threatened. Dart now has the most passing yards through 4 games of any SEC quarterback in the last 20 years. And how about Trey Harris, his go-to weapon? 11 catches, 225 yards this week, including touchdowns of 36 yards and 70. Ole Miss finished with 607 yards of offense. They were hampered by 11 penalties, over 100 yards in penalties. But Jackson Dart now has an eye-popping 1,554 passing yards in his first 4 games of the year. Leads the country in total passing yards. Trey Harris, he's second in the nation in receiving yards behind some dude at San Jose State. He's only trailing him by 9 yards, so a good chance to pass him. But if the Rebels had personnel or performance questions back in the summer, I think those questions are all out of the window. 4 lopsided non-conference wins by a score of 240-22. Ole Miss looks legit. Some still arguing they haven't truly been tested yet. Next up, they will host Kentucky next Saturday in their SEC opener. Lane Kiffin saying on Sunday, he said, we noticed Kentucky was 1 play away from beating Georgia 2 weeks ago. So obviously not a team to take lightly. Another winner of the weekend. How about old Graham Mertz at Florida? In a game where nobody was expecting much out of Florida at Mississippi State, the Gators rolled to a 45-28 SEC road victory. Graham Mertz passed for 3 touchdowns, rushed for another, and Florida ended a 7-game losing streak against FBS opponents. The Gators had 500 yards of total offense, completed 93% of their passes. Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway. That's the Gators' best completion percentage in a game in the last 25 years. And at 2-2, the Natives quiet, at least for a bit, on Billy Napier. They get a bye week this week. Then they host UCF on October 5th, a very important game. UCF 3-0 with a road win over TCU already this season. Another winner of the weekend, Texas running back Jaden Blue. Look, it was a night where Arch Manning was expected to be the headline, but it was running back Jaden Blue carrying the load, 25 carries, 124 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had a receiving touchdown as well. Texas beat Louisiana Monroe 51-3. But look, Blue was banged up in recent weeks. It was really good to see him healthy and running wild for the Longhorns. Remember, UT was hoping he could emerge as their go-to guy in the backfield after C.J. Baxter got hurt during the preseason. As for Arch Manning, a little bit of a mixed day. Threw for 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. But Texas has got some great receivers, man. Bond, Golden, Wingo, Bolden, they all look strong. And kudos to that Texas defense. They held Louisiana Monroe to 111 total yards and just 3 points. They now rank top 5 in the nation in least amount of yards allowed. In fact, when you look at the numbers in terms of yards allowed, 4 of the top 5 are SEC teams. Tennessee, number 1. Ohio State, 2, or rather, the 3 of the top 5. It's Ohio State, 2, Indiana, 3, Georgia, 4, Texas, 5. But look at points allowed. 4 of the top 5 there are Ole Miss teams. Ole Miss, number 1, tied with Texas. They're both giving up 5.5 points a game. Georgia, who just had their bye, is giving up 6 points a game. They're 3rd. Ohio State's 4th. And Tennessee Volunteers, 5th at 7 points a game. Strong defenses so far. Next up for Texas, they open SEC play hosting Mississippi State. Pretty good time to get them kind of ease. And, as for Oklahoma, they had a, brutal opener, SEC opener hosting Tennessee. Texas gets to ease their foot into the water hosting Mississippi State. All right, another impressed of the week. How about Mason Taylor at LSU? The tight end recorded 8 catches for 77 yards to lead LSU in both categories during a 34-17 win over UCLA. But look, I get it. You're going, why are those numbers important? Well, Mason Taylor became LSU's all-time leader in receiving yards by a tight end. ESPN listed him at 999 career receiving yards. LSU's listing him with 1,000 career receiving yards. So regardless if he needs that 1 yard, he should probably get it this week against South Alabama. But 99 catches to his name. He already held the record for career catches by a tight end in school history. Taylor saying after the game, means a lot. It's definitely a goal of mine to come in and make an impact to a program like this. But Brian Kelly and tight ends, it's just a match made in heaven. He's always had good production from tight ends. Also want to show some love to Garrett Nussmeier, LSU quarterback, who had yet another 300-yard passing day. That's now 3 of his 4 starts this year, over 300 passing yards, 13 touchdowns to 2 INTs. He's second in the SEC in passing yards behind just Jackson Dart. He also has the 7th most passing yards in the country, and his 13 passing touchdowns, second most among all quarterbacks behind only Cam Ward at Miami. So pretty good there. How about over at Missouri? I've got running back Nate Noel on this list for the second straight week. Top 10 ranked Mizzou had a close game this time with Vanderbilt needing overtime to beat them 30-27. I thought about putting Luther Burden on here. He had 6 catches for 76 yards and 2 scores. But Nate Noel, toting the rock, 24 carries, 199 yards, including a 64-yarder. And Noel has emerged as the workhorse over Marcus Carroll in that backfield. He's now 3rd in the SEC in rushing yards behind Jaquindon Jackson and Dylan Sampson, just ahead of Henry Parrish. And after the game, Eli Drinkwood saying, look, we're 4-0, so we're as good as we can be record-wise, but nowhere near as good as we can be playing-wise. We have to take a good look at the Missouri Tigers. It was a really scary game for Mizzou. It was played with fire these last couple of weeks. They will get a bye before they head to Texas A&M on October 5th. Another winner of the weekend. How about Marcel Reed, the A&M quarterback playing against Bowling Green? Played pretty well. A&M pulls out the 26-20 win over the Falcons. I said last week I was a little worried for the Aggies, but for the second straight week, Marcel Reed makes the start at quarterback, throws for 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and rushed for 91. Mike Elko saying he'd like him to be a little bit more accurate, or I'm saying not Elko, but I'm sure Elko would like him to be more accurate, completing just 56% of his passes. Connor Wegman did not dress this week. Mike Elko said, we didn't want to give him the shot. He's dealing with the pain on that shoulder. We're trying to get him to the point of throwing comfortably. Some tough games ahead for A&M this week in Dallas against Arkansas. Then they host Mizzou. Another winner, I've got Dane Key from Kentucky. Kentucky beat up on Ohio 41-6 to improve to 2-2 on the season. It was a get-right game for Kentucky's offense. Brock Vandagriff threw for 237. But Dane Key with 7 catches, 145 yards on the day. It was his first 100-yard game this season, his first since last year against Tennessee. And Dane Key had 6 touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons at Kentucky. He has not found the end zone yet this year. Mark Stoops been opting to go short yardage near the goal line, hand it off to the running backs. The Cats had 4 rushing touchdowns this week, 2 to Sumo Karngbae, the running back. Next up for Kentucky, a road trip at Ole Miss this week. And our last winner of the weekend, how about Robbie Ashford, filling in for the injured Lenore Sellers, racking up some stats in South Carolina's 50-7 win over Akron. Ashford threw for 243 yards and 2 passing touchdowns with 133 rushing yards and a score. Gamecocks opened 3-1 for the first time since 2017 as they bounced back from that close home loss to LSU. Ashford saying after the game, been through a lot of ups and downs in my career, and it's taught me a lot. Shane Beamer says he expects Lenore Sellers to be ready with another 2 weeks to go before they host or take on a top 5 opponent in Ole Miss. He said, we didn't think we needed to put him out there tonight in any circumstance. We expect he'll be fine. Beamer said on Sunday, I think everybody should be a go for that Ole Miss game. So certainly something to keep an eye on. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll get to our losers of the weekend. Who disappointed us? That's coming your way here in just a second. But first, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you make your bets. It's over at FanDuel. And look, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's only available over there at FanDuel.com. Of course, you can download their app, take advantage of America's #1 sports book, and they got all the action up there each week, including all the college games, or majority of the college games, including most of them from the SEC, with good lines, good action, and of course, that big one happening this weekend, Georgia sitting as a slight favorite over Alabama. It's all there for you over at FanDuel.com. Again, take advantage, sign up on the website. If you've never done so, place that $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets, and download the app. It is FanDuel. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. We got to dive back into it because we hit our winners of the weekend. Now we got to get to our losers of the weekend. And we got to head over to Oklahoma, as the Oklahoma offense is a big dud of the weekend. 222 total yards of offense, but most of that came in the fourth quarter. Jackson Arnold, just 7 of 16 for 54 yards and an interception. He was benched. Michael Hawkins came in, threw for 132 and a late touchdown. Oklahoma rushed 34 carries for just 36 net yards. 4 fumbles on the night, 2 of them by Jackson Arnold in the first half. And like I said, Oklahoma decided to make a change of that quarterback position after Jackson Arnold's second fumble. They turned to the true freshman, Michael Hawkins. And just been a really disappointing start to the season under Jackson Arnold, former 5-star prospect. Remember, they had Dylan Gabriel last year, but they believed so much in Jackson Arnold. Dylan Gabriel left in the transfer portal, went over to Oregon, and they thought they had the next coming in Jackson Arnold, but just hasn't worked out yet. And after the game, or towards the end of the game, Kirk Herbstreit saying on the broadcast, he's a believer in Michael Hawkins, saying that he thinks he said, quote, "This is the quarterback right here, number 9, moving on to next week. This kid has done enough in these handful of series. This is what it's all about right here." So will be interesting. Jackson Arnold was benched late in the first half, 3rd overall turnover of the night, and Michael Hawkins looked okay. So we'll see what Oklahoma decides to do. But as for injuries, heading into this week, Brent Venables said wide receiver Nick Anderson restrained his quad. Anderson was making his return from injury on Saturday, but was forced to leave the game in the first quarter and was later seen in street clothes. Really tough for that kid who started the season hurt, battled back, and sounds like hurt again. Then there was a gruesome injury to defensive back Kendall Dolby in the first half. Suffered a serious leg injury trying to make a tackle. They had to bring out the cart and cart him off. But the Sooners going to try to pick up the pieces after a really rough night in Norman. I mean, the fans are fired up. Game day was there, all the attention. Sooners will now travel to Auburn for a very interesting Week 5 matchup between 2 offenses that are kind of stinking up the joint. Well, at least Auburn's moving the football. They're just turning it over a ton. Oklahoma's not moving the football and turning it over. So it'll be real interesting to see who plays quarterback there for Oklahoma. Another deep press of the weekend. Let's keep it right there. Let's go over to Auburn. Hank Brown, rough first half against the Razorbacks. He threw 3 interceptions in the half, leading to Hugh Freeze deciding to make a change at the break. Auburn turned to Peyton Thorne, its starter, to begin the year, to start the second half. Brown was making just his second start of his career and his first against an SEC foe. He took over the starting job following Thorne's poor performance against Cal earlier this month. Tigers entered last week ranked 50th nationally in passing success rate. A lot of their good production came against Alabama, A&M, and New Mexico. And some are berating Hank Brown for a quote a week ago saying, quote, "I'm excited for SEC play and I'm excited to dominate Arkansas." Might be a little bit more choosy with his words moving forward. But after the game, Hugh Freeze sharing his displeasure with the quarterback play, saying it's just discouraging. You have 1 possession in the first half that you don't turn the ball over and you're moving it. We turned it over on Arkansas's 29, the 0, and the 27. Auburn now has 14 turnovers in just 4 games played. It had 20 in all of last season. That's over the course of 13 games. That stat from Nathan King. Also saw Auburn has turned it over multiple times in 6 straight games. Overall, Hugh Freeze not pleased with how he and his staff have been coaching his quarterbacks currently. Says that he has not officially named a starter for this week's game against Oklahoma. He said, quote, "I have no idea sitting here right now, but I'll go back to work tomorrow. I'll be as locked in as I've ever been to try and get that fixed." Freeze said the quarterback play has been miserable to watch. Now it seems like Freeze will likely go back to Peyton Thorne. He did connect with Lambert Smith on a 67-yarder in the fourth quarter. And Thorne with an interesting comment after the game saying, what advice are you going to give to Hank Brown? He said he's going to talk to him, quote, about staying off his phone, quite honestly. But Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tiger quarterbacks, they will get back to work this week. And big-time foe in Oklahoma as they play their first road SEC game at Jordan-Hare. But 2 offenses with a lot of question marks. Is it going to be Hank Brown? Is it going to be Peyton Thorne? On the other side, is it going to be Jackson Arnold, or is it going to be Michael Hawkins? It's like we're playing quarterback roulette around the SEC. All right, another loser of the weekend. I'm putting this one as a combo, and hear me out on this one. We're going to put the Vandy kicker, Brock Taylor, but I'm also including wide receiver Junior Sherrill and quarterback Diego Pavia. And by the way, Pavia played great most of this game. But set the stage. In overtime, Vanderbilt's defense holds Mizzou to a field goal. Diego Pavia almost immediately takes Vandy down to the Mizzou 12 for a 1st and 10. So think about this. If Vandy scores the touchdown, that's it. Game over. They win. A chance to potentially score the walk-off touchdown in overtime. But on 1st down, they lose 3. Okay, so it's 2nd and 13 from the 15. Pavia then underthrows a ball to the corner of the end zone. Sherrill then has to push the Mizzou DB and gets called for offensive pass interference. If he doesn't push him, it's likely going to be an interception. But that makes it a 2nd and 28 from the Mizzou 30. Now, they did get some of the yardage back on the next play on 3rd down as he went back to Sherrill. And then Brock Taylor would go on to miss the 31-yard field goal. It was just such a wasted opportunity for Vanderbilt, man. You have a chance to go into a top 10 team's house in Mizzou and beat them in overtime, and you couldn't get it done. So, Vandy, you're improved, but that's a big boy win, and they couldn't pull it off. Kudos to Mizzou. Again, they did what they needed to do, but I thought when they held Mizzou to the field goal, the way Pavia was running, they got a great chance here. And they didn't do it. All right, a few more disappointed, and these are focused on injuries, so it doesn't mean this person specifically disappointed. They may have, but really just losing them really stinks. And we start with Blake Shapen, Mississippi State quarterback, going to miss the rest of the season. The Bulldogs confirmed Saturday night. Blake Shapen left the game in the 4th quarter, has a shoulder injury that will require season-ending surgery. He could apply for a medical waiver to get that year back. But Jeff Lebby saying in a statement, "We're all hurting for Blake after this unfortunate news. He's the ultimate competitor and teammate and the unquestioned leader in our program." Bulldogs were trailing by 14 late in the 3rd quarter. Shapen appeared to injure his shoulder on a run. They turned to freshman Michael Van Buren, took over snaps the final 2 series. So it seems like they're going to roll with Van Buren the rest of the way. Bulldogs defense, by the way, they have been really atrocious. They gave up a touchdown on all but 3 drives this past week. And Florida averaged 6 yards per carry with 36 rushes for 226 yards. Jeff Lebby said, we got a choice to make, and the choice is to get up, each and every one of us. We're going to wake up in the morning, and the sun's going to come up. So trying to be positive. Another one on the weekend, Harold Perkins over at LSU left the UCLA game with an injury. And according to Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports, Harold Perkins is going to miss the remainder of the 2024 season with a torn ACL. Immediately after the game, Brian Kelly said Perkins would undergo more tests for a few days and more information would be revealed. But multiple reports out that Harold Perkins lost for the season over there at LSU. He was tied on the team with 17 total tackles through the first 4 games. Also had a fumble recovery to his credit. Now, LSU's been getting good edge rush from Braden Swinson. He's got 5 sacks on the year. Savion Jones has 3.5. Perkins had 0. So maybe, it's a loss in name and obviously a leader of that team. But in terms of production, they got some other guys who have been stepping up. So maybe it won't be a huge loss for LSU. We will see. And then another loss of the weekend. How about Rocket Sanders, South Carolina running back, exited Saturday's game in the first quarter. He was later seen leaving the field in a walking boot. Radio broadcaster Todd Ellis reported the injury as a lower leg injury. Now, Shane Beamer saying on Sunday, he said a little bit of an ankle, nothing long-term, we think at all. So that was Shane Beamer being uber positive about the injury on Sunday. We'll have to see moving forward if Rocket Sanders will be back here very soon for the Gamecocks. Still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. Game Time, they got that new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. And Game Time Picks, what they do is they filter out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation process makes it easier to save more on sporting events. Go check out Game Time, download the app, and check out all the great tickets they've got going on. They've also got the all-in pricing feature. You toggle that. That'll show your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Of course, the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Go download Game Time today, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off today. Download Game Time. What time is it? It is game time. All right, a few more notes here as we wrap up. It was announced that ESPN's College Game Day going to continue their streak of SEC venues. The popular pregame show announced on social media they are headed to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for Alabama's big-time matchup against Georgia in a top-5 showdown. Of course, we'll have Reese Davis join the desk, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, Pat McAfee, and Nick Saban. In the last 2 weeks, Game Day has been to Columbia, South Carolina for LSU, South Carolina. Then they were in Norman for Tennessee versus Oklahoma. So the visit to Tuscaloosa also going to mark the first time Nick Saban will be on campus in his Game Day analyst role. So Game Day, Kalen DeBoer and his team getting ready for a monster matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs. One other one here, SEC Nation announced they are going to go visit the Plains of Auburn for their matchup against Oklahoma. Sooners will make their debut on the road in the SEC, and we'll see what that looks like. Like we talked about, quarterback carousel over at Auburn and Oklahoma. Keep an eye on that one. All right, before we get out of here, the AP Top 25 came out yesterday while you were watching your NFL games, and the SEC has 9 teams included in the top 25 this week. Texas holds on to the number 1 spot as they jumped Georgia just a week ago. A little movement elsewhere at the top of the poll. The SEC still controls 5 of the top 6 spots. Texas 1, Georgia 2, Bama 4, Tennessee 5, Ole Miss 6. And then Missouri comes in there at number 11, LSU at number 14, Oklahoma still hanging strong at 21, and Texas A&M at number 24. So those are the teams ranked in the AP poll. See if they stay there. I saw South Carolina was among the group of teams, others receiving votes at 3-1. So at least good to see the Gamecocks getting a little bit of love there. But yeah, I mean, look, monster matchup this weekend with number 2 going to number 4 in Georgia and Alabama. And we'll see how Kalen DeBoer responds in his first really true SEC test of the SEC season. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. And hey, for your second listen, you can check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin getting you caught up on all the big stories across the world of college football. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. You guys have a great Monday. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back and see us.